Alright, so in this video we are looking for the missing sides of triangles that are special right triangles. So either 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45. So we look at number 1 here. Number 1, we are given that this is a 45, 45, and we are given the leg, and so we automatically know the other leg here. And then the formula that we use is the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. And so we have 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which is going to give us 4. In number 2, we have a 45, 45, and we are given the hypotenuse. And so therefore the equation we're using is the leg is equal to the hypotenuse divided by 2, which is this part right here, 4 divided by 2. But then we need to rationalize the denominator, which tells us we're going to multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. We then end up with the 4 square root of 2 divided by 2. We need to cancel those, the lowest terms, and so we end up that each one of these legs is 2 times the square root of 2. In number 3, we are given a, make this a little bit bigger if I can. Maybe not. I'm just going to leave it like that. In number 3, we are given a 45, 45 triangle. And there we go, that makes it bigger. And we are given the leg, so automatically this leg here is also 3 times the square root of 2. And so we're looking for the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. And so we have the leg times the square root of 2. And so this is going to give us a 2 times the 3, which is 6, divided by 2, makes that hypotenuse equal to 3. In number 4 is a 45, 45. We're given the leg. We're looking for the hypotenuse. So therefore the leg is equal to, the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. The leg is 3 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is going to make the hypotenuse 6. All right, if we look at number 5, we have a 45, 40. We are given the hypotenuse, so we're looking for a leg, which is the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. So we have 6 divided by the square root of 2. Remember, you cannot divide 6 and the square root of 2. This is underneath the radical, this is not. But I do need to rationalize the denominator and thereby multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. What happens then is that we get 6 times the square root of 2 divided by 2, and then we need to reduce this to lowest terms. So each one of our legs is 3 times the square root of 2. In number 6, we have a 45, 40 triangle. We are given the hypotenuse, which is 2 times the square root of 6. We need to figure out the legs, which is going to be the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. So we're going to have 6 times the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2. Since these are both under the radical, we can divide those and get the square root of 3. And so each of our legs is going to be 2 times the square root of 3. So I know the top's blurry, but we're looking at number 7 and 8 now, so it shouldn't bother us. If we look at number 7, number 7 is a 30, 60, 90. We are given the hypotenuse. The short side is the where we're looking at the y here, remember that's the side opposite the 30 degree. The short side is equal to the hypotenuse divided by 2, so that gives us 8. And then the long side, which is the angle, or the side opposite the 60 degree angle, is equal to the short side times the square root of 3. And so since the short side was 8, 8 times the square root of 3 is the long side. In number 8, we have a 30, 60, 90. We are given the short side. The long side is equal to the short side times the square root of 3. And so the long side is going to be 2 times the square root of 3. The hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short side, which was 2, which the hypotenuse then is going to be 4. Okay, if we look at the next page, we're given, or the back side, we have 30, 60, 90. And so we are given the short side here is 8. So the long side is going to be equal to the short side times the square root of 3. So that's going to be 8 times the square root of 3. We then need to find out the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short side, and the short side was given to us as 8. So 2 times 8 is going to give us 16. Looking at number 10 is a 30, 60, 90. In this one, we were given the hypotenuse. So I'm going to look for the short side by taking the hypotenuse and dividing by 2. So I'm going to have 8 times the square root of 5 divided by 2, which gives us 4 times the square root of 5. I then need to find the long side, which is equal to the short side times the square root of 3. The short side was 4 times the square root of 15, and we multiply, or 4 times the square root of 5, and when we multiply that by the square root of 3, that is going to give us 4 times the square root of 15. In number 10, I was given a 30, 60, 90. And I was given the long side here. Here's 60, it's the side opposite. So I'm going to start by finding the short side, because that's equal to the long side divided by the square root of 3. So when I take 5 times the square root of 3 divided by the square root of 3, the square root of 3's cancel out, and I'm going to be left with that short side is equal to 5. I then need to find the hypotenuse, which is equal to 2 times the short side. And so 2 times the short side, which is 5, is going to give us a hypotenuse of 10. Number 12 is a 30, 60, 90. We are given that the hypotenuse is 10. So therefore we can find the short side by taking the hypotenuse and dividing by 2. And that is going to give us 5. So continuing on with number 13, we have a 45, 45. We are given the hypotenuse. So we need to take the leg. To figure out the leg, we have to take the hypotenuse and divide by the square root of 2. So we're going to take 8 times the square root of 2 and divide by the square root of 2. That'll cancel out and tell us that the leg is 8. So both of those legs are 8. In number 14, we have a 30, 60, 90. We are given, here's the 30 degree angle, so, we are given this is the 30 degree angle, so this is the 60 degree angle, and so therefore we are given the long side. We can then find the short side by taking the long side and dividing by the square root of 3. And when we do that, we can't take the 12 and divide it by 3, but what we do need to do is rationalize the denominator. And that gives us 12 times the square root of 3 over 3. And we then have to take the 12 and the 3 and reduce those to 4 times the square root of 3. And once again, that was the short leg. And then we needed to figure out the hypotenuse, which is 2 times the short leg. So 2 times 4 square root of 3, we're going to be able to multiply the 2 and the 4 to get 8 times the square root of 3. Looking at number 15, we have a 30, 60, 90. Looking at what we are given, the hypotenuse. So to find the short side, we're going to take the hypotenuse and divide by 2. And so the hypotenuse was 3, and when we divide that by 2, that's going to give us 3/2 for the short side. To find the long side, we're going to take the short side and multiply it by the square root of 3. The short side was 3/2. When we multiply it by the square root of 3, it just gives us 3 times the square root of 3 divided by 2. Number 16 is a 30, 60, 90. We are given the long side. Here's the 60-degree angle, so it's the side opposite. And so we're going to take and say that the short side is the long side divided by the square root of 3. So 11 square root of 3 divided by the square root of 3, those cancel out and leave us with 11 for the short side. If we look here at the finding the hypotenuse, that's 2 times the short side. 2 times our short side was 11 tells us that this is 22. If we look at number 17, then this is going to be a 30, 60, 90. And we are given the hypotenuse. So we're going to take the hypotenuse and divide it by 2. And that is going to give us the short side. Remember that this 2 on this 2 can cancel out, so that's how we get the square root of 2. We're going to take the short side times the square root of 3. Since these are both radicands, numbers under the radical, we can multiply those together, and the long side is the square root of 6. And then number 18, we have a 45, 45. We are given the hypotenuse, so if we take the hypotenuse and divide it by the square root of 2, we then have to rationalize the denominator, and therefore each one of these legs are 7 times the square root of 2 divided by 2.